What's up? It's Raphael with NBA Draft Junkies, and I had to bring Gerald back. It's Gerald from the Lakers Fast Break. He came on last week, gave us mock draft. It was one of the more popular of the mock draft and big board series that I've done, so I definitely had to bring him back. This time, he will discuss the second half of his mock draft. I gave him a little bit of time because I usually try to do them back to back, but I know he's been celebrating the Lakers and their championship. So congratulations to you as obviously the Lakers fan. I mean, you can see the background, Lakers Fast Break. But before we get into your mock draft, just tell the audience about the last week or so as a Lakers fan and all the time that you've put in with your podcast, and just to see it end on a happy note. How has that experience been? Because as a Blazers fan, I haven't seen my team win a championship. They won one, but it was right before I was born.
Well, I'll tell you right now, if the Blazers win the World Championship coming up, I would like to be there for you as you were there for me. I mean, you were there every step of the way in our playoff coverage, and you were so gracious and you brought such great insight. And for me, I can tell you, you could see it on my face when we did that World Championship podcast, right after they won the title. And even then, since then, I've just had this glow. It just feels so great. It just feels so good when your team that you've followed since pretty much, your conscious moments. In fact, I always say that, the thing that made me a Lakers fan, my destiny was that I was born 2 blocks away from the Los Angeles Forum back in the 60s. So, for me, it was something that it was destiny, but, be that as it may, it was still something that I truly believed I wanted to be a part of the Laker Nation. And, since the 70s, since I was actually very conscious of watching the Lakers, to see this moment after especially everything that they went through, I think that on top of it, it's not just a regular World Championship. This was something with all that's going on with the racial injustice that's out there and the Black Lives Matter movement that the NBA has helped, just keep going, and LeBron and all that as far as trying to keep that going, and the emotions of Kobe's death and Kobe's passing so tragically. And it started off in China, where we didn't even know if the Lakers or you would have issues as far as that's concerned after what Daryl Morey said, for that matter. I mean, you've gone on the record as far as your experiences in China after what was said. I mean, imagine the Lakers who were in a high profile spot around that time. So it's been an up and down roller coaster ride, and to do that and finally pay off with the World Championship was just an undescribable feeling. And to do it with one of my daughters who's now a huge Lakers fan, and to experience that with her really for the first time was just a truly rewarding experience. I cannot thank enough for her.
Now, how does it feel compared to the other championships? I know it doesn't seem like it's been completed since there hasn't been a parade. And it seems like because football is going on and the election, it seemed like it's already came and went.
Yeah.
As opposed to like a normal situation where you win in June, the parade is a couple days later, and then basketball is consistently being talked about because the draft and free agency is like a week away.
And, LA is already talking about the Dodgers because they're going to the World Series and all that. For me, it's still the most special because of all those circumstances which I just described for you. I understand it comes at a different point in the year, but the ratings for all the sports are down. People's attentions are distracted on other things at this point in time. And I get that because of certain climates that are out there. But for me, I can say, for me, not only the fact that because I started work on this show, the Lakers Fast Break, just in this year, in this year, within the past 12 months I started, it's just been a great experience for me. I think it was just all encompassing and something that I've never really even, to all the other championships they won, even had before. Even when they went and they destroyed the Boston myth when they finally won in Boston. And even when the Kobe's final World Championship, how fulfilling those were, this was something even a little bit more special to me. I think this has to be number one.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering because, like I said, it just seems like it came and went. Like it,
Yeah.
and maybe I just haven't been watching a lot of TV, but it just seems like they won. You had a day or two, and then everything is centered on the LeBron GOAT debates with Jordan.
Oh yeah.
And then it's just so much other stuff that's going on. Just it seems like it just hasn't received the same attention.
Well, that's the advent of social media. That's something that really wasn't even in play. Even the 2009, 2010 Lakers championship wasn't as much per se. I mean, now we center a lot of our lives around social media. I mean, like you said, Twitter. Okay, Lakers this, Lakers that. Then, like you said, it goes to GOAT versus, as far as who's the debate, the GOAT debate. Who is going to be? Is it going to be LeBron or is it going to be MJ? That talk was on Twitter so much. Now Twitter, they move on to something else, and then they move on to something else, and it becomes so dominated with so many different things each and every day. It's hard to keep up with that. But again, hopefully I will be able to go ahead and at some point in time reflect even more on this World Championship, because you're right. As soon as I took a breath, it seemed like it was gone already.
Yeah. And then the Dodgers aren't hoping it. Well, I mean, I guess if you live in LA and you're a Dodgers fan, you feel like it's been one of the best couple of weeks, considering everything that's gone on, how 2020 started. So
Yeah.
thought I'd ask. I've never experienced
Well, like I said, I want to be there for you if the Blazers win. I want to be right there for you, man, because you were for me. I mean, if people want to go ahead and check out our coverage, it's still there. It's on the Lakers Fast Break channel, wherever you get your podcasts. In fact, I'm going to bring you back on. I don't know if you want to come back on with the Lakerholics or do something separate, because we've always had our separate ones where we talked about the draft and things of that nature. I don't know if you want to go ahead and come on with the Lakerholics, because we're now in the process of doing championship roundtables, which are basically just something disguised as a way for me to go ahead and have arguments with the rest of the Lakerholics. We had that on this past weekend.
yeah, I'll
And
be the oddball.
yeah, exactly. So you're the one that always brings sense, sensible, just great commentary, and then all the rest of us are fighting. I mean, I had never been part of a show where you go on the ESPNs, you see the Foxes, and all they do is argue, and they're paid millions of dollars to go ahead and argue with each other. And I'm like, I'm never going to have a show like that. And then you end up having a show like that that's you didn't even plan for, because people are arguing with you because they're so adamant on their views, and it's just so funny. But yeah, if you wanted to check out our roundtables, but I definitely want to bring you back on always, anytime you want, because you bring such insight. And of course, with the NBA draft coming up and it's looming on the horizon, not just for the Lakers, but for the NBA, it always provides another intriguing story into the mix for the NBA, because that's what's worked so much and worked so well for the NBA previously, is that people are talking about the NBA 10 to 11 months out of the year. And that's what makes it so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you want, just let me know. I'll be on there. So
Well,
just
I've already
anytime.
reached out to you. You already know I want to get you on this week. So
Yeah, let me
just,
know. I mean, I have time.
well, if anybody looks at our Facebook Live videos with you previously, with that look you make every time that Laker Tom or I or Laker Tom or Jamie Sweet starts arguing, you're just like, I want to be somewhere else. Calgon, take me away. Something like that, like the old commercials is so funny right there. So yeah, you can check it out. No problem. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's been a great time. It's been a great time.
yeah, I enjoyed it. I feel like I haven't talked to those guys in a week when I was used to seeing them every other day.
Well, I might ask you to go ahead and be part of the second roundtable then this coming weekend as well. So we'll see. We'll see if you're up to it. If you're up to it,
I'm up to it. Just let me know.
you got it.
All right, let's get back to the real reason why you're here, and the reason why the last video did so well is because people were interested in your views and your takes and your mock draft. So one, you gotta you can't be so hard on yourself. Like you're really hard on yourself as far as your mock drafts. And
Well, James Wiseman. I
oh,
want to get that out of the way. James Wiseman.
Jonathan Wiseman. Yeah, they were pretty
and I deserved it. You know what?
accurate.
All props to your viewers. All props to everyone out there. They caught it, and you know what? I deserved it. I deserved all the flack on it. It was brain fade, whatever you want to say. James Wiseman, yeah, great talent, and I do think he's going to go in the top 3. I think he should go in the top 3, anyways. He's at least on that far up on my big board, and in mock drafts, I think you would be making a mistake if he escaped the top 3. James Wiseman, of course.
All right. So if you think he's top 3, who do you think is the choice for the Orlando Magic at number 15?
At number 15 for me, I've got a man that you profiled. You got a man that you actually went to take some video of, and you've got some exclusive video on him, and that's RJ Hampton. I think he fits a role quite nicely as far as either from a point guard or shooting guard position. I think ultimately he could become a really strong point guard for you if his shot works out. And, that seems to be the running theme for you and I. If his shot works out, I mean, you could almost fill that in the blank with, 27 of 30 prospects that are in the first round right there for you. But I think he's a really good combo guard. I think DJ Augustine will be on the move somewhere. I think DJ Augustine is going to be a trade target for people because
I think he's a free agent
for the Lakers. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a free agent. Well, there you go.
So yeah.
Yeah, if he's a free agent, that he's going to leave Orlando. I mean, the Lakers will probably be after him. Other teams will probably be after him. He's a really solid point guard who still has years left in the league, and you need something to replace that. And he provides something a little bit different than what Markelle Fultz has, to offer at the point guard. Just if he can shoot a little bit better, you're hoping he can get to somewhere in even the mid 30s as far as from the 3-point area. And if he can do that, he's really going to find a nice place in the league.
Yeah, I just did I haven't put it up yet. It'll probably be up by the time this episode airs. But I did a breakdown. It's actually for my Dash Radio show. So it'll be on YouTube by the time this radio airs, but it's already aired on Dash Radio. And I did like a breakdown for the Southeastern Division of team needs. And so I had RJ as a possible for Orlando as far as like swinging for the fences. And what I did mention was that the RJ Fultz backcourt could be really, really good, or they could really lack outside shooting. But I think Orlando's kind of like in no man's land because they're like, I don't really see them being able to move up past, ahead of the 8th seed in next year. I mean, you figure Milwaukee's going to be there. Toronto, obviously, Brooklyn, Miami, I think Indiana would be good. Philly, so that's 6 right there. And Boston, so that's 7. And so I don't see any way that they can pass one of those teams up in the standings. So you're kind of like, best case scenario is the 8th seed. But
again,
how long do you want to stay in that no man's land where you're the 8th seed and you're getting like the 15th pick every year? So I feel
and if they see that, I think they're going to go ahead and look at like trading Aaron Gordon, trading some of their assets,
and
maybe Mo
Vooch.
Bamba, because I don't Vucevic, great player, but he's got a contract that maybe people may shy away from. But if they can if they can move him, then that gives Mo Bamba a chance, because we're going to find out. I think Mo Bamba needs an opportunity to see whether or not he's going to be a big-time player in this league. I don't think he's had that opportunity, but that's again, it's either he moves on or becomes part of a trade, or he gets a chance and opportunity because Vucevic gets traded, which again is going to be a little bit harder because he's got that heavy-duty contract out right now.
Yeah. And that's why I feel like they have to move on. I would love Aaron Gordon in Portland, but I don't want to give up CJ McCollum. And I don't think the Blazers have the assets to make a deal like that work. But yeah, I just figure like they should swing for the fences this year. And if they aren't, like by All-Star break, if they aren't feeling like they have a chance to compete for maybe 6 or 7 seed, then it may be time to just tear it down again and trade, see what you get some assets, and then see if you can get a pick in the 21 draft. So they're they're like in the worst place to be. I think I would rather be,
Purgatory, NBA
yeah,
purgatory.
I'd rather be the worst team than the eighth seed in the Eastern Conference, because they were like 7 games under 500 or something like that, and they were still in the playoffs. So it's kind of like a consolation prize. Like if you're that bad, you should be able to get a lottery pick.
Absolutely.
All right, here is a pressure pick. It's number 16. It's my Portland Trailblazers. And who do you think the Blazers should select at number 16?
You know, I love this kid, my friend. You know, I'm really high on this guy, Alexsej Pokusevski. I'm really, really high on this guy. I think he has top 10 talent, but as I've said before, reminds me of the original Captain America movie where the guy sees someone else and doesn't see Captain America and says, that guy needs a sandwich. Not only does he need a sandwich, he needs a full buffet or 2 or 3. I mean, he might be 200 pounds soaking wet, but as a 7-footer, you've seen the tape, you've seen the video.
I've seen him live.
You've seen him live.
Yeah.
Pass, can shoot, can run the floor, can actually handle the ball a little bit, and play a little bit of defense, except again, it's the issue of size with strength. So, because if he's out there on the floor and LeBron and let's say Dwight Howard are looking at him, they're going to be laughing, because they just destroy him. But if he can gain some strength, 20 to 30 pounds, if he can gain maybe 20, 25 pounds of strength, I mean, my gosh, he has a great future in this league. But that's the big if. Can he put on that weight effectively while still maintain a talent? Because again, he has the tool set. I don't want to call him the unicorn or anything like that, but he has, to me, top 10 talent, I think. And Portland is in the position where there can still be a very good team that can compete for a higher playoff spot. I still think they have a lot of talent on the team. And right there, it is a home run reach. It is a reach. It's something where it's a gamble. I'm not going to kid you wrong, but I think they're the perfect team to go ahead and do that because they see in him what, hopefully, if they pick him that what I see is someone that could be a talent that if he gains enough strength and weight, that it could be something that could be very rewarding for you. And it could be a piece. I don't want to say like a Jokic, but maybe a Jokic light, an extremely light, because he is quite a bit lighter, but somebody who really has all the facets of the game already at such an early age.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you compare him and Jokic at the same age, he was probably ahead. The Portland pick, I never thought about Portland and Pokusevski. Even though I'm a Blazers fan, I felt like I've thought of a lot of different scenarios. On one hand, I feel like the Blazers do a pretty good job of developing their players. I thought that Ant Simons, he was ahead of his schedule. I thought Gary Trent showed tremendous progress in the bubble. But Portland doesn't have a G League team. And so it's weird because they've done a pretty decent job developing guys without a G League team. And so I wonder where would Pokusevski go to develop. And I want to say their theory is we'll send guys to the G League, let them play here and there, but we feel like there's better development traveling on the road and so on. So I also feel like, if I'm not mistaken, most of the Blazers G League players they send to the Texas Legends, which is right around the corner from me. So it would be cool to see him play and watch his development. But yeah, that's what I wonder because, they have Nasir Little, who I don't think he played a lot in the G League this year. I know Trent played last season. They had like Jalen Horde was down this year. So I just wonder, like, from a developmental standpoint, would they send him to the G League for a whole year, considering it's so far away that they won't be able to be as hands-on? Or do you have them take up a roster spot, travel with the team, and just kind of develop there, and then you kind of bring them out of nowhere? I mean, even though it happened way back in the day, they did the same thing with Jermaine O'Neal. And nobody knew what he was capable of until he ended up being moved for Dale Davis. And so, yeah, I mean, that would be an interesting fit. And I also don't know, like, if you're Portland and you have your first round pick, a guy that you take number 16, do you want to send him to the G League and have the Mavs have all their eyes on him and develop him and so on? And, it's in a situation where they don't play him because they want his stock to be low so they can end up adding him to their roster. So a lot of things to think about, but I wouldn't be mad at that pick. My preference would be Saddiq Bey because I feel like they want to win now. The windows.
But he's already went at 14 for me.
Yeah. I know I was upset about that. But
I don't think he's going to get down to the Portland. I really don't. I think Saddiq Bey is going to be thought of in that context right around 12 to 15. I mean, if he goes down to Portland, I think that would be a great pick for Portland. But if he's gone, I think they need to look at this because of the players on the back end of the draft, I think Pokusevski has one of the biggest upsides there is. I really
definitely.
do.
Yeah. The youngest player, so you have plenty of time.
Yeah.
All right. Now, number 17. So this is the Timberwolves' second pick in the draft. Who do you think would be a good fit for them?
For me, it's going to be, I think, he played very well when James Wiseman decided to go ahead and bail on his Memphis team, and that is Precious Achiuwa. A really solid player, could bring some tenacity and some defense.
They need
he has a high motor. Something, yeah, exactly. Well, they need more of the Precious Achiuwa as far as on the defensive end. They need like 3 or 4 more defenders on that team. But be that as it may, I think he would be a decent fit around Towns, around Cat. I think if you're looking at keeping Towns long term, which I think Minnesota is pretty much, at this point inclined to do, unless Towns decides he wants to go ahead and scream, I want to leave, I want to leave, I want to leave. I think Precious Achiuwa could be a pretty good fit right around him and does a lot of things, the dirty things as far as the rebounding, he's in the mix, does a lot of things that maybe Cat doesn't want to do, and could be that guy going for the offensive rebounds while Cat's on the outside shooting threes, et cetera, like that, as far as doing all the dirty work things that maybe Cat doesn't want to do and helping on the defensive end. So I think he's probably that type of player. I think he could be very effective in the pick and roll, so we could see him develop into possibly a Montrezl Harrell type individual, maybe with a little bit better defense. So I think Precious could be a pretty good pick there. At least it tells me that they're going ahead and taking a step in the right direction if they do.
Yeah, that would be a good fit. I think that's another one that I never really considered. And what's interesting is Precious is working out with Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. I would love to see those workouts because it's like two opposites. You have a big that doesn't have touch, that seems like he's skilled but a little raw, and his trainer is an undersized point guard.
Shooter.
Yeah, a shooter who was like Steph Curry before Steph Curry in a sense, a guy that was born in the wrong era. But he
would be just incredible here.
Yeah. He would definitely be more known in today's game than he was. He was just ahead of his time. But he's known for being, like you said, a shooter, a sniper, one of the best shooters and one of the best players I remember in college basketball history. I mean,
when you tell me that, when you say that, just reminds me of Paul Westhead, how you're talking about ahead of his time. Paul Westhead would thrive in this environment.
They scored 200.
Absolutely loved. Yeah, they would score 200. They would just shoot threes. You go ahead, score 2. We'll just leave the lane wide open for you, and then we'll go ahead and shoot more threes. I mean, you saw what he did with Loyola Marymount, and you saw what he did with Denver. I mean, my gosh, it would be a lot of fun to see. No defense would be played, but a lot of no defense. Although he did win, 1 or 2 WNBA championships as well.
I'm not sure. He was with the Lakers, right? Wasn't he?
Well, yeah, he was with the Lakers,
Magic.
and then Magic kicked him out.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically. But he won a WNBA championship coaching a team, I think, as well. But yeah, he's had some success over the years. So getting back to Mahmoud, just a tremendous player. Like you said, born well before his time, and he would just thrive right now, right in this environment.
Right. And I'm just curious to see how how the him and Precious connect, and then I mean, if Precious can develop a jump shot, which I have concerns about his touch because he's a really bad free throw shooter.
Yeah.
But if he can develop his jump shot, that opens up, like a lot of other players, but that opens up a lot of things in his game, because I think he can be a good straight line driver, and he will be a tough matchup for a center, because if he can knock threes, you bring him out the paint, and then he has the ball handling and agility to be able to attack the rim off hard closeouts. So he would absolutely be a steal at 16 or 17 or anywhere, even late lottery, if he can just become league average or even 30, low 30% 3-point shooter. I think that just would open things up. All right, so now you got the Dallas Mavericks at number 18. Dallas is a team I think is going to have an interesting summer. You're starting to hear their name mentioned with the Giannis rumors. And so I wonder what they do this summer, as far as like, not this summer, what they do this Christmas in free agency. But they have the number 18th pick in the draft. Who do you think would be a good fit for Dallas?
Well, right now, I would probably say at this point in the draft, it's kind of weird because they really need more front court help than back court help, but there's really no one here that you really want to take a reach on at this point for that's going to help them substantially in the front court. So I think they're going to have to do any type of additions in that end through free agency or trades, or like you said, get Giannis. that'll cure it for sure. But I will say that Cole Anthony, for me, is probably what I'm going to pick at Dallas right now, because he can also do something that not a lot of the point guards in this draft can do well, and that is play off the ball. I think he can score. I think he can play with Luka when they're both on the court together. But I also think that when Luka's off the court, he can play an effective enough point guard as a backup, mainly a scoring a point guard, because he's obviously got that scoring mentality. I think he can provide that for you in those times when Luka's on the bench, but also still be able to play some minutes with Luka. And I think that's got to be something that you look at first and foremost is, can he play with Luka? And in my thought process is, I think right around of all the guards right there that can provide you a little bit of each. Maybe RJ Hampton would also be a good pick if he falls right there for you. But I would say at this point, if RJ is not there, Cole Anthony.
You're on fire today. I think that's a good pick, because one, Cole Anthony definitely has lottery talent.
Yeah.
Two, the concerns or questions about his game is as a lead guard, as a distributor, and making players around him better. If he goes to Dallas, that's not a concern. Yeah. He would come in and he'd be able to provide instant offense. And then he was a really good shooter off the ball. And even though he didn't get a lot of opportunities, but he was very efficient when he was in catch and shoot situations. And then the area that he struggled the most in was finishing at the rim, because North Carolina didn't have a lot of floor spacing. He goes to Dallas. That's not an issue either, because the lane would be wide open. And then I think Dallas needs another guy on the team that can create his own shot, that can get a bucket. And that's something that Anthony can do as far as late in shot clocks. He has the ability to get by his man and put pressure on the defense. So that would be a really good pick. Another one that I haven't considered. So I like that choice for Dallas.
Well, I learned from the best in Rafael Barlow as far as looking and seeing where the fits match up. And I think this would be a good fit for there. And I think, like you said, he does have that lottery talent, but he's so frowned upon at this point in time by the media, and I'm assuming GMs as well, because the fact that he had such a bad year at North Carolina with the injury and the team sucked and all that stuff, that there people are down on him. And that's the type where you go ahead and say to yourself, hey, this could be a really good pickup. And he does a lot of things that we need him to do, not a lot of things that where his game dictates where it should go, as far as, like you said, oh, he has to be this point guard, he has to be this point. No, he doesn't have to be those things on Dallas, because Luka's already there, and it takes a lot of the pressure off him so he can become a player that fits in their mold and not someone else's.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to consider that on my next mock. So,
wow.
If I steal it from you, I'll give you credit.
As you know, I would just be stealing it back from you then. There you go.
All right, number 19, the Brooklyn Nets. Now this is, their core is already set. Now it's just all about finding a guy that can play well with Kyrie and Durant, which I'm interested to see how they work out together, especially considering the comments that were made about the coach or lack of coaching needed. So
it's a collaboration, didn't you hear?
Yeah. So who will be your choice to go to Brooklyn at number 19?
Well, if that's the case, and you already have enough firepower with, conceivably, you already have enough firepower with KD and also Kyrie Irving there, conceivably, when you've got two 20-point scores already there. You need defense. You need someone to focus on the defensive end. And this pick for me, I think, would probably be the best fit for them. Jahmi'Us Ramsey from Texas Tech would be my choice, because the fact that he has a focus on the defensive side of the ball. I'm not sure on his shot. He's one of the I guess the ones that I really can't figure out, because you see he shot well from the three-point area, but he's a really bad free throw shooter. So I don't know in the NBA how well that translates. And I think a lot of people that are trying to also figure that as well, because what's going to translate to the NBA? Is it going to be that three-point area? Is it going to be the bad free throw shooting? So I don't know. That's the question, I think, when it comes to him. Is he a good shooter or is he not coming into the league? But the defensive side of the game, that's not in question, and I think he would be a good fit around those two.
Yeah, and it's kind of unfair to compare him to another Texas Tech alum in Jarrett Culver. And I know Culver had a year in college where he shot 38% as a freshman. And so you thought 38% as a freshman. Then it went down to, 38% from three. Then it went down to 30% as a sophomore. And so people like myself were trying to figure out, okay, which is the more accurate indicator of his three-point shooting, because it's such a big jump, close to 8 points. But he was efficient from the field. And then his rookie year, it was worse than it was his sophomore year. He shot 29% from three and only 46% from the free throw line. So, yeah, you don't want to compare Jahmi'Us to Culver, and then you also look at Zaire Smith, who was, I want to say, the 15th pick from Philly, even though he's had some injury issues and he hasn't played much. But the last few guys from Texas Tech, short amount of time that came out, they haven't had a lot of success in the NBA. And I know it's, like I said, again, it's a bad comparison because Culver only played half a year in a sense. And so, but there were similar concerns about his shot and his shot consistency. And then with Zaire Smith, he was just considered an athlete, but I think he shot the ball pretty well at Texas Tech also. He just hasn't really had an opportunity to show in the NBA because he's been injured or just hasn't been able to play. And with Jahmi'Us, it seems like 3 years in a row. The question is, which number are the more accurate assessment of his ability as a shooter? Is it the free throw percentage or is it the three-point shot? And that's a question that we won't know until next year.
Wait and see, my friend. But yeah, it's very, I don't want to say misleading. It's not the word I want to really say, but it's just, it's really hard to figure out exactly how that's going to translate early on. We never
Mm-hmm.
know what's going to end up 5-10 years down the line. He could really work on his shot and become a great shooter, or could stay a bad shooter if he enters the league that way. But early on, what is his shooting percentage going to be like? How is it going to translate? Because his numbers are so misleading in
Mm-hmm.
one way or the other. It takes you down one path, and then it takes you down another, if that makes sense.
Right. And to be fair, I saw him work out once this summer, and the shot looked good. Like
Okay.
it was like an effortless stroke from behind the line, and it looked good. And it wasn't like I saw him in a workout, but he was also playing like 5-on-5, and so it looked good with a live defense. Now, I mean, there was one or two NBA players on the floor there, another couple guys that are in this draft. So again, it looked good against a live defense, and I do plan on trying to go to another one of his workouts between now and the draft, and maybe I can provide an update then. But yeah, I mean, I think that Ramsey's an interesting choice. I haven't seen him that high in a while. I feel like maybe earlier in the summer he was on a lot of boards in the late 20s, and then now he seems like he's kind of slipped to second round. But if he goes to Brooklyn, I mean, that's one thing that he'll have to do is shoot. He'll have to shoot with consistency in order to stay on the floor.
I've seen him slip too. I don't think he's a second rounder. I think he has enough talent to stay in the first round, especially if teams are looking for defense. And I think the Lakers and their world championship run just goes to show you the emphasis you should have on the defensive end.
Yeah, and I think more so for him, it's his defensive potential based off his characteristics and physical tools as opposed to his actual defense. But yeah, man, but that's, I feel like that could be something that could be developed. So now moving down to number 20, you have the team that your Lakers just eliminated in the NBA Finals. Surprise team to make a trip to the finals. And Miami has some holes that they may need to fill in free agency while
Yes.
also trying to maintain cap space for 2021. So, who do you have Miami selecting at number 20?
I say it's going to be someone that's moved up in recent months, somebody that has been thought of from either the second round, either mid second round, even lower second round, has moved up in a lot of people's drafts, and that is Grant Riller from Charleston. So I think he is going to be that type of player that's going to have a flair for the game. A lot of people are going to be very excited about watching what he's going to do in the league. I'd like his turnover ratio to go a little bit down because it's still a little bit high. But when he goes on the floor, he makes things happen. And I think, for a team that has aspirations of getting back into the NBA Finals again, or win the NBA Finals right away while still maintaining that cap space, I think as an older player coming out of the draft, I think he can provide that backup focused mentality that you need coming off the bench and provide something that Goran Dragic, who's probably going to be vacating in free agency, is probably going to have that space that's missing, and Grant Riller could fill some of that need. He's not going to replace Goran Dragic right away, because no one can. That they can get really right away if you want to keep that cap space. But I think he's at least a good start to someone who can fill up some minutes for you.
That is another really good option that I didn't consider, especially if you think about how good of a finisher Riller is around the basket.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of Dragic's greatest strengths, in my opinion, is that he's such a physical guard that puts a lot of pressure on the defense with his straight line drives to the rim. And I think that's one of Grant Riller's strengths. Riller's he's more dancey with the ball. Dragic is just going straight at you. And then,
Yeah.
but Dragic can play off the ball too. But yeah, that would be a pretty good pick. And now I'm kind of mad that I did a Southeastern Conference breakdown of possible guys that Miami could look at, and really wasn't one of the guys. And it's too late for me to edit that video now, but I like that choice for Miami. All right, so 21, you have the Philadelphia 76ers. They have a new coach in Doc Rivers. So we don't know like what kind of offense they'll run, because this is a totally different roster that it's like, Houston was built with all guards and wings. Philly is the opposite. They have too many bigs and not enough floor spacing. So your job with this pick is to find someone that can complement Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid and Al Horford and Tobias Harris. Please find a shooter.
Well, that's what obviously that's their first need. I mean, yeah, because they don't have a whole lot of it there in Philly, and if they try to get rid of Al Horford, it goes even less. But I will say that the choice here for me comes down to Desmond Bane or Tyrell Terry, because at this point in time, they're probably the best shooters around that area. But I'm going to probably lean a little bit in the way of Tyrell Terry, just because of the fact that he provides some playmaking that when Ben Simmons goes to the bench that you can still have. He's very crafty with the ball, but most importantly, he can shoot. I don't know if he could play off the ball with Simmons as well. He could, because he's a ball handler and he can do a lot of things. I'd say of the two between Bane and Terry, I'd say I'd lean towards Terry for Philadelphia, just because of the fact that they need that ball handling right there. That's, again, to help maybe develop Ben Simmons even more as an off-the-ball player, but also give him a rest and have somebody that can go ahead and bring in and run the offense as well.
Yeah, I'm very interested in seeing how Doc uses Ben Simmons. That's going to be one of the biggest storylines, in my opinion, for whenever the 2021 season. Well, I won't even. I guess you got to take the 20 out of it. The 21 season is just going to have one number on it.
Exactly.
But yeah, I wouldn't be mad at that pick. I think Philly definitely needs shooting, and they need another playmaker. There's a few other guards that could possibly come in and fill that role, but I think Terry probably has the higher upside as far as like the guards that are left. And then
he reminds me of Van Vliet. He reminds me of Van Vliet in many ways for me.
Yeah. I could see that. I think he's a little bigger now. I think they have him listed at like 6'2" or 6'3" now. I just saw something where they say he's grown 2 inches. But yeah, Philly definitely needs shooting. They need a playmaker. And I'm just interested to see how they end up, if they make any changes or how this roster handles it. Because I feel like their expectations will be a little lower this year or next season or whatever compared to past, but also feel like there is pressure that if it doesn't work this year, then somebody's gone.
And the fact that he grew, like you said, to 6'2" or 6'3" really helps out a lot and makes that an even more enticing pick for him right there, because he was one time thought of right around 6'1".
Mm-hmm.
If he goes up to 6'3", that makes a world of difference for some teams.
Yeah, and the past few years with I guess Doc's whole tenure in LA, he had like a 6-man that was like this combo 1-2 that was a scorer that he turned into multiple 6-man of the year award winners. And so maybe Tyrell Terry will be the next Lou Williams / Jamal Crawford, a guy that he just gives the ball to in the second unit and just says, go get us
just avoid the chicken wings.
Yeah. All right, the Denver Nuggets, number 22. I think Denver's in a really good spot because they're a young team. Their stars are pretty much under contract for the next couple of years.
Yep.
And then they could, find someone that can probably, maybe earn a few minutes for them at number 22. So who do you think would be a good fit for Denver?
Well, I mentioned him just a second ago as being an option there. I think he's on my draft board at that point in time. He would be one of the highest rated. I was hoping for him, and Lakers fans are hoping for him to fall to the Lakers. I don't think he'll make it that far, but Desmond Bane would probably be my choice. For a team that's ready to win now, I think he could be a nice piece to give 15 minutes off the bench and some nice shooting initially, and who knows where his career will go from there.
You can never have too much shooting. And then, I never considered him for Denver. I think at this point now, I don't know if he gets past Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Simply because we don't know what's going to happen with Joe Harris.
Yeah.
Even if they keep Joe Harris and Bane together, I mean, talk about gravity. So, that would be a good pick because I felt like with Denver, they have offense, and then they may lose Jerry Grant. And then I think Will Barton should be back. And so if you lose Grant, then Barton will probably take those minutes that, we saw in the playoffs, and then I'll open up another spot on the wing for another shooter or just another player on the wing that can come in and play some minutes. And then, the minutes that Torrey Craig was playing, I think that Bane could probably come in and earn some of those minutes, and then definitely make a high-scoring Denver offense even better.
Well, I agree with you on your assessment that Desmond Bane could go as high as Brooklyn because he fits a lot of things that I said about Jahmi'Us Ramsey. The only difference is, do you want to go ahead with someone that could develop 2 to 3 years more in Jahmi'Us, or do you want to go with someone that's more ready to win now in Desmond Bane? So that's a either or situation that I think would fit both teams. If it was even reversed, where Denver takes Jahmi'Us and Brooklyn takes Desmond, I think it's the same type of player as far as good defenders, good shooters, and I think that really would come into play as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, and then most people would consider Jahmi'Us to have a higher upside anyway, so
yeah,
you can see that. All right, number 23, the Utah Jazz.
Well, I know how much you have an affinity for the international prospects, and I've been looking at this guy a while, but he's dropped on a lot of people's draft boards, but I don't think he's going to escape the first round, and that's Theo Maledon. I think as someone that Utah as a winning team can develop, as Mike Conley gets older and older and older, because he isn't getting any younger, I would say that Theo Maledon might develop into a player that they could go ahead and have confidence in as far as a player coming off the bench to give them some good minutes. I don't want to say, I even said on my profile of him that, reminds me a lot of the Bruno Caboclo pick that, was famously said by Fran Fraschilla, he's 2 years away from being 2 years away. I don't know if he's that far away, but as a 19-year-old, he is going to need some time to develop, whether it's in the G League or whether it's overseas. But I think he's someone that should not escape the first round because I think he has a lot of talent.
Talk about adding another international flavor to the team. So you'd have Gobert from France. So you'd have the two. There'd be a French connection with Gobert. You got Bogdanovic, who is from, I can't remember where he's from. Croatia.
Serbia?
Croatia. Oh. Bogdan is from Serbia. Okay. Bojan is from Croatia. And then Joe Ingles is Australian. So yeah, they would add another international flavor to that roster. So yeah, I think that would be a pretty good pick, especially for him. He'd have the opportunity to come in and learn from Mike Conley, who I have been comparing him to Mike Conley. I'm comparing him as a boring, really good player that is underappreciated by the fans, that just knows how to play. Yeah. Like Mike Conley can knock down open shots. He can make the right passes. He's not flashy. He's never going to be, I always joke around and say there's no kids outside in their driveway saying, Mike Conley, because he doesn't really have a signature move unless you
He's not a jersey seller.
Yeah. Like I said, he doesn't have a signature move unless you consider the fact that he's a lefty and he shoots righty floaters like a natural righty. But other than that, Conley is going to have a really, really solid career. Obviously, he's going to make hundreds of millions of dollars, one of the highest paid players in the league, without making an all-star team. And the reason, in my opinion, he never made an all-star team is because he's been in the West and his game just isn't sexy enough.
Yeah.
And to me, I see Maledon as a bigger Mike Conley. Just
Good comparison.
Yeah, I mean, he can be an engine if you need him to be, but he's more so also a game manager, but a good defender that's not going to make a lot of mistakes. That's just knows how to run a team. And so that's my comparison for Maledon, a bigger Mike Conley. So I would love to see those two, link up, and Conley could be like a mentor to him. And in Maledon's case, he would have Tony Parker as a mentor and Mike Conley. Pretty hard to fail when you have those guys in your ear.
Yeah. I think he's going to, like I said, he needs some time.
Mm-hmm.
He's very raw, but I think he can go ahead in a couple of years and be someone that can be effective for a team coming off the bench. And like you said, if he's able to learn from Mike Conley, who emulates a lot of what he does, I think that would only benefit him even more.
Yep. Moving right along to number 24. This was the team that everyone wanted to see the Lakers meet in the finals, the Milwaukee Bucks. And they came up short, and now they have bigger problems to worry about.
Yeah.
So who's your choice for the Milwaukee Bucks here?
Now, if they keep this pick, and that's a very big if, because they could package this in a trade, because, as you and I both know, when you're at the level that Milwaukee is, where you have such great regular seasons, but you've done nothing in the playoffs, and you just couldn't get it done 2 years straight, and you have Giannis, who is making you nervous every single second by not committing long term. And as you know, even committing long term, if he signs a supermax, that doesn't mean anything, because next year he could probably say, I want to go anyways. Yeah. So, but be that as it may, I think Milwaukee is definitely in a win now mode. So provided they keep this pick, and that's a very big if, I would probably say at this point in time, Tyrese Maxey is probably who I'd be leaning on at this point in time. I think he can work out a shot because he's a very good free throw shooter, and that usually translates well for improving the outside shot. But as a defensive, Milwaukee's best interest, because he can get some time in early on and be someone that's going to get a lot of people's faces in charge, just right there on you. And then I think that's something that it's really hard to teach early on, is that on the ball defense, because it's like you said previously with Maledon, things are not sexy. It's not a sexy thing to do to work on the defensive end. It's only later do you realize the importance of the defensive end and how important it is to the game. Knowing or coming in already just focused on the defensive end is really a good thing for him. And I think he can develop his shot into something really good from the outside. I'm still worried about that aspect, but again, he's a good free throw shooter. And as you and I both know, that's a decent indicator on him developing from the outside.
Yeah, and I'm starting to think that he could be another one of these Kentucky guards that outplays his draft position. And if he falls this far, I think the chances of that are even higher. You put him with Eric Bledsoe, who's another Kentucky guard who is a good defender. I mean, I think Bledsoe was first team or second team all defense this year. So that's not a bad person to learn from. And then there's a Clutch connection. They both signed with Clutch. So I think.
Well, then he should go to the Lakers, of course, because it's Team Clutch.
Yeah, I mean, they're, they'll probably come up with some trade scenarios to try to get him there. I know he's working out in LA, but yeah, I think that connection of them being both from Kentucky, both with the same agency, will probably make their relationship pretty strong as far as like a mentoring aspect. Even though Bledsoe has been rumored to be on his way out, because of, you'd have to throw Bledsoe in a deal if you want to get like Chris Paul or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think Maxey in Milwaukee would be a pretty good fit. He gives them something a little different than what they have. I think that, he would give them a slasher and another defender. The outside shot would be important simply because Milwaukee relies so heavily on Giannis creating opportunities for other players, but Tyrese does have some shot creation ability on his own.
I think that'll develop. Again, he's a good free throw shooter, and that, like you said, analysts and the way people looking at it has translated to being able to work more and be more effective on his outside shooting, where he'll become a competent enough three-point shooter, I think, in the league. I think it will. It's just, at least all the signs are pointing in that direction.
I agree. Now, moving on to number 25, which is a possible trade partner for the Milwaukee Bucks. We got the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Well, again, if they keep this pick, because also as well, you're talking about Chris Paul. They're going to try and ship Chris Paul out. They're going to be rebuilding on that team. They have already 10,000 draft picks coming up in this next decade. I'm going to go right now with Josh Green if they keep the pick. I think he has good metrics, above average metrics on a lot of different things. He's not great at any specific thing, or nothing really stands out really good. But he's pretty good at a lot of different things. And I think that could translate as far as a solid 7 to 10 year career in the league. I really think that he could help a backcourt a lot. He's got good size. So I think for shooting guard 6'6", going in there, got a nice 6'10" wingspan. I think he's really solid with the shooting mechanics. I think he really is going to be someone that can be very effective. I just don't think he's going to be a star in the league. I'm hoping I'm wrong for the kid, because I really want him to go ahead and work out. But I really think he's going to be a solid guard in the league. And I think that if you're getting a solid guard at number 25, I think that's really saying something, because at this point, it's really just what you're throwing darts at this point in time, hoping that it'll hit.
Yeah. I mean, I think that he fits the mold of a 3-and-D wing player that every team needs. I mentioned with him, his shooting numbers were better. Like the eye test and what I see on paper as far as his shooting numbers from three are a little different. Yeah. I personally don't know if he's as good a shooter as, his 3-point field goal percentage. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong for the kid, like you said. I think the reason why he has kind of fallen a little bit, because I know he was a higher rated high school prospect, is because he hasn't really shown the ability as far as like shot creation, as far as like creating his own shot. But he fits the mold into a 3-and-D guy. So I think he'll be valuable around the league. I mean, there's a couple of teams that I think that he would be a good fit. I mean, I think for him, going to Oklahoma City would probably guarantee him a lot of minutes on a rebuilding team. But I imagine there's a couple of teams that are around this range that are playoff teams that would love to have another defender that can be a complementary player to their star. So, like I wouldn't surprise to see like Utah or maybe even Milwaukee or Denver, maybe even Boston look at him, simply because they're ready to win now and they are going to need as many wing defenders as possible to shut down some of these other teams' good offensive players. But for him, Oklahoma City would probably be the best situation as far as playing time and kind of
developing.
Developing.
Because they've done a great job in Oklahoma City of developing talent there. I mean, there's a lot of, you see the MVPs that they had. They developed 3 MVPs there. So, I mean, if that doesn't tell you about their development program, I don't know what will.
Yep. And then even like you look at Darius Baisley, who was, I mean,
and Lou Dort.
Lou Dort, 2 guys that weren't highly regarded, that if you did a redraft, I think could end up being mid-first round picks. And they did a good job of not only developing them, but they played rotation minutes on the playoff team. So, I mean, going to Oklahoma City, he may end up developing into that shot creator that people hoped he would turn into when he was such a highly regarded high school prospect. All right, down to a franchise that you're probably not a big fan of, but it's the Boston Celtics at number 26.
Well, for them, they need a lot of front court help. And if that's the case, I'm going to pick right now Paul Reed. I think he's more of a win now type player. Doesn't have the highest ceiling of as many other players in this draft, but my gosh, he does 2 things really well. hustles, rebounds, and plays a lot of defense alongside of it. So I think he could be that pick and roll, tenacious defender that rebounds, and I think he can go ahead and I think that will translate in the league. I think he will always have a place in the league because of the fact he's such a good rebounder. And again, if he develops any type of offensive game, that's a bonus. But for, I think, Boston's needs, I think that would be a good fit right there.
Yeah. I saw something hilarious on one of my comments on the profile video I did for him. Someone compared him, or they said he is Stromile Swift with a brain. And I'll
cool.
just, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. That I thought that was hilarious, and yeah. So, Stromile Swift with a brain. That's cold, and yeah. So we'll move on to number 27.
Yes, we'll move on.
27 is the New York Knicks, and who do you think would be a good fit here for New York?
Well, they just need talent. You and I both know. You just need talent on that team. They've got something that hopefully could start out. Chris Paul's been rumored to go there. As far as developing that talent. I'm going to say right now, in the need of talent, I'd probably say one of the most talented individuals that has underperformed, I think, a little bit, but could have a place in the league if he works hard and maybe understands where he's at this point in time, is Jaden McDaniels.
Swinging for the fences on that one. That's a home run that the Knicks have to be willing to take.
He's the biggest potential right now of anywhere there in that slot range in the late 20s. I think of anybody right there, I think has the biggest potential, boom or bust. And I think when you're the Knicks, what do you got to lose? I mean, at this point, because you've got a lot of busts right there already. You've also got Mitchell Robinson, who's been a big, I thought the Lakers should have got him back when he's eligible for the draft, and look how well he's performed. Yeah. So it could be a situation where you could get another big guy who could develop for you. And I think this was somebody that was one of the top-rated power forwards, one of the top-rated players, coming out of high school, and just playing on that team in Washington just really has dropped his stock dramatically. But I still see the potential there. And at this point in the draft, you got to start reaching. And, right there, I think at that point at 27, it is a reach, but he does have the potential to become one of the best players at that end of the draft. Then I think he has the potential to become a starter in the league, which is something not a lot of these players at this end of the draft can say.
Yeah, he is super skilled. He's 6'9", 6'10", glides around the floor like a guard. I mean, there's times where you watch him and you say, like, this is Kevin Durant without the jump shot. I think he's Durant without the jump shot, which doesn't make him Durant, obviously. But just the way he moves and the skill set. And I've even said on the profile video I did for him, if I were him, I'm calling Kevin Durant and I'm just, hey, can I study you? Can I work out with you for a week, a month? I want to mimic everything you do, because if he becomes half as good as Durant, then he's a top 50 or 60 player in the NBA, just being half as good as Durant. And because there's not many guys that he can look at and compare himself to as far as like body type and agility and skill set. Again, he doesn't have the jumper as far as being consistent when he's outside shooting. I don't know if he has the same competitive fire that Durant had. Durant was, he was a dog when he was in college at UT. And I think Jaden is kind of cool sometimes. Like, he kind of floats and he goes stretches where he doesn't really dominate the game or maximize his talent and his skill level. So I think that would be a good pick. And of course, if you're New York, what do you have to lose? Actually, I think any team in this range could, you can say the same for Boston. They have their guys, but, he could go there, and if he doesn't pan out, they have 3 first-round picks. So it's not like they lost anything. And then even with the Lakers at 28, very unlikely he would come in and crack their rotation. But if he can develop into another Kuzma, who was also selected late in the first round, that to win, you'd be able to put him in, South Bay, which is, they share the same facility. You can watch his development. And then I'm a firm believer that if LeBron wants you to succeed and LeBron is on your neck as far as just holding you accountable, then you'll do well. So, but he's not on the board anymore because you selected him. So who is available that you think could fit for your LA Lakers?
Well, solid guard, somebody that I think could give you some effective minutes sooner rather than later. Then, yes, we all well know Rondo is playoff Rondo. During the regular season, Rondo is analytically horrible Rondo, but during the playoffs, he's playoff Rondo. And the thing is, you want someone to go ahead and fill some minutes, maybe at a playmaking guard, maybe someone that could go ahead and maybe possibly play off LeBron a little bit to help free up some minutes for Rondo as he gets older. So I'm going to say Trey Jones probably at that point in time, if he develops his outside shot. And I think he will, because it's going back to what we talked about before. He's a good free throw shooter at close to 80%. So you're going to go ahead and take the assumption that he's going to develop his outside game because of that.
Yep. And for him, he improved a lot from his freshman year to sophomore year. His freshman year, he was a major liability in the half court for Duke. I felt like teams weren't even closing out on him at one point because he just couldn't knock down shots. And then it felt like he kind of lost his confidence. But he came back as a sophomore, which he had to take more so of a leadership role with Zion and RJ being gone. And I thought he had a pretty good year. And like I said, he improved as a shooter. I think he's going to be like a really good backup point guard, game manager that just kind of runs the team, doesn't make any mistakes when he's in there, takes care of the ball, and plays winning basketball. So, yeah, I think that would be a good pick for the Lakers.
And at that point in time, if you can get that right there, I think you're going to be happy to see, because you're not going to get at this point in time, or actually there's a very small chance you're going to get someone that's going to be your star for your team. So getting a solid player like that at that point in time, I think is a good choice for the Lakers.
Yeah, and I like what you said about Rondo being playoff Rondo. So the Lakers are going to be good regardless next year. And so you can really develop him throughout the whole entire season. He can start off playing, 5 to 10 minutes a game, and I can see
you could put Rondo literally on ice for a little while for 82 games, and then thaw him out of cryo right there,
right
at the playoffs, and say it's time, Rondo, turn it on now.
Activate him in April, or in a normal year, April. I don't know what's going to be this year, so
because you got to remember, okay, he's going to go probably back, the way the last few years have worked out, that he's going to go back to analytically terrible Rondo during the course of the season. So I've got to tell myself through several months of the year that he was awesome for us in the playoffs. He's playoff Rondo. So I got to be telling myself that. So wouldn't it be nice to have something there as an option in a Trey Jones that could come off the bench and maybe free up Rondo to go ahead and be more of that coach, that somebody that's looking towards the playoffs that you can throw in there that won't be well rested. We'll have some minutes, but we won't have to depend it on him on any way, shape, or form during the regular season, and be ready for you in the playoffs, because Trey Jones is filling a lot of that slack and also gaining experience at the same point in time.
Yeah, and learning from Rondo.
Now that's not bad, because I think, as you and I've talked about before, he's a future coach in this league if he wants to.
All right, 29, the Toronto Raptors. The team that had the longest defending championship title in history.
Well, here is the reach, my friend. I'm going to say at this point in time, Leandro Bolmaro. I think he's got a lot of flash in his game, but he needs more substance, if that makes sense, in as far as being able to go ahead and round a lot of things, that the basics, the fundamentals. Let's get the shooting going. Let's get as far as those turnovers down. Let's get a lot of those things that he needs to work on, maybe also on the defensive end. But my gosh, the guy has got some flash, got some style, and could turn out to be a pretty good point guard. I don't want to say Rubio-esque, but I want to say at least it's someone that could give you effective minutes, could become a decent point guard in the league. Again, someone with a lot of flash, just has to go ahead and round out other parts of his game.
So you think that he's a point?
I think he's a point. I know a lot of people are pointing towards him for a shooting guard, but from what I'm seeing on the video, I think if he stays a shooting guard, he's going to be someone that's never going to fill his potential. I think as a point guard, being able to go ahead and give you some minutes off the bench and provide some flash, I think he's going to be able to do that. But again, it comes to the situation, where do these teams see someone like that as? Do you see him developing in his game as far as from a point guard standard, or do you see him developing as an off the ball or maybe even a wing? He's got some great size, 6'7", needs to gain more strength, but I just think that he's got a lot of flash. I think eventually he's got a lot of playmaking skills. I think that could translate well as far as from a big guard standpoint.
Yeah, I see him as a ball handling secondary playmaker, kind of like a Joe Ingles type that, you can put him on the floor next to a pretty much anybody because he can run pick and rolls from the side. He's from Argentina, so they all have a little bit of flash and flair in their game. And
well, if he's playing off of Kyle Lowry's going to take the point, but he would be someone that, again, like you said, as a secondary ball handler, could be able to make plays, or you could center the offense around him, I see, at some point in time, if he develops in the right way.
Yeah. Yep. All right. The last pick, Boston Celtics.
All right. Last pick for Boston Celtics. They're another team, again, in the win now mode, and they've had 3 picks. If they keep all 3 picks, because I don't think there's anyone out there that's going to say, okay, it's going to be a great deal if they keep all 3 picks, because I think you and I both know that they want to go ahead and package some of this to get some talent that's going to help them win more now. Maybe to another team that might be interested in, as far as that's concerned. But if they keep the picks and they keep number 30, I'm going to say they need someone that's going to be a little bit older that, again, can be able to help them sooner rather than later. And I'm going to say Tyler Bay from Colorado. I think athletically, just a great athlete. He's going to be someone that's going to be able to do enough out there from both an offensive and defensive end to go ahead and help as a role player. I don't think if you're expecting anything more than that at this point in the draft, you're kidding yourself. But if you get a nice role player at number 30, I think you can get that in Tyler Bay. I think he matches a lot of what Boston Celtics should be looking for at this point.
Yeah, and I just feel like you said, Boston won't be making this pick for themselves. I think this will be for another team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just
but
can't
if they
see
have
them,
to keep it.
Yeah, I just can't see them keeping all 3 picks because they could even be in a situation where they don't even have enough roster spots for all 3 guys. And I mean, they have some pretty good guys in the G League. I mean, they had even like Romeo Langford, who was, high pick last year. I know he had dealt with some injury issues, but he's probably going to have a hard time cracking the rotation and getting consistent minutes. And so I definitely think pick 26 and 30 are going to have their work cut out for them to crack the rotation. So I could see Boston moving these picks. And but yeah, I mean, only time will tell. For some reason, I think that if Oklahoma City wants to do a full rebuild and they want to add more picks to their million picks that they have, I wonder if there's some way that Boston can work out a deal where they give up 3 first-round picks and maybe a young player and a contractor or whatever to make the salaries match up for someone like Steven Adams.
Yeah.
But
I'd say that would work out a lot better for them. But then again, Oklahoma City would have
they
10,003 draft picks.
Average age 21.
Yes.
Well, thank you again for coming on. And, before we close out, let the audience know all the many hats that you wear and everything that you have going on at this point in time.
Well, not as many as you, my friend, but every day is the same, and it's the same thing every day with me as well. almost coining it as well as you could, but not quite. But I will tell you this, I do 3 great shows. Obviously the Lakers Fast Break, which you can get, which covers the NBA draft, and of course the Los Angeles Lakers. That's available wherever you get your podcasts. If you're into fantasy football, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, I do a show each week with Chris Arieri, and it also goes up on its own channel, Inside Sports Fantasy Football. So you want to go ahead and check that out if you're into it. We try to give good sound advice, and Chris is incredible at doing that. And of course, the one I'm probably most well known for, although the Lakers Fast Break is growing by leaps and bounds, so that's always great to hear. And a lot of that is due to Raphael being on the show. And that is the Pop Culture Cosmos. That's distributed worldwide on radio and also available wherever you get your podcasts, where we cover the latest news and trends in pop culture twice a week. Every Monday and Friday, we drop new episodes. And it's just a fun time. There's no political, there's nothing religious. It's just pop culture, pop culture, pop culture. We talk about everything from movies, television, streaming, video games, board gaming. I have great interviews with actors, directors, a whole bunch of great people, that are in around consumer electronics, things of that nature. So if you get a chance, check out, because again, it covers the latest news and trends in pop culture. We hit the subjects that everybody's talking about during the course of the week. And we do it twice a week, every Monday and Friday at the Pop Culture Cosmos.
Sounds like a lot. It's a busy man right here, so I appreciate you.
Almost as busy. I'm emulating your work habits, my friend. Your work ethic is second to none, so I'm the second. So I hope that doesn't make me none.
No, I think you have me beat. You have a family. It's just me, so I don't have to divide my time up with anybody. So, but yeah, like I said, I thank you for coming on, taking time out of your busy schedule, and just finishing out your mock draft. All right. Well, thanks again for coming on. This is Gerald Glassford. I want to say from the Lakers Fast Break, but there's so many other things I could say from the Pop Culture Cosmos, fantasy. It's just Gerald Glassford from a bunch of things. One of the hardest working men in show business. So,
well, I learned it from you.
Nah, you're the one that got me started on the podcast, though. I learned it from you. So, but yeah, thanks again for coming on. It's Raphael Barlow with my guest, Gerald Glassford from the Lakers Fast Break, and we are out.